Hey guys, Mila Buckley, the Hangry Woman, here today talking to you about another stigma series topic that is around amputations. This is a super heavy, super serious topic. I won't be showing anything that is graphic, but I will be describing issues that may seem uncomfortable or that may be hard to hear. So I just want to let you know that ahead of time. If you're new to my channel, I make videos about diabetes, so everything diabetes, from eating to stigma to cooking for diabetes to just life overall. If you like that kind of content, please do give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. I love and just enjoy so much meeting new people that I learn have diabetes and that are thriving and that also need help and that are struggling. And it's just really nice to be able to build that community and find each other, because diabetes is so stigmatized and people don't like to talk about it. So I love opening that door and that conversation and hopefully getting people to talk more about it. Like I said, today's video is going to be a more serious one than what we normally deal with. I think it's a really important topic to talk about, and so we're just gonna dive right into it and chat through it. So in 2010, 73,000 Americans over the age of 30 who had diabetes had amputations. The number does seem high, and also consider that there are 29 million people in the US right now living with diabetes, more across the world, far more across the world, but that number in comparison to the 29 million people living with diabetes is small. So it's a relatively small complication. It's also important to know that lower limb amputations over the past 20 years have declined. So this is a complication that we are more keenly aware about. We know how to treat a little bit better, and it's not happening as much or on as large of a scale as it had been happening like 20 years ago. So I'm bringing this topic up because last week some very disturbing graphics and very stigmatizing graphics surfaced about amputations. And I'm gonna put it up. It's not a graphic. However, it is it's very stark. Seeing it, you're just kind of like, wow, somebody actually did that. So it's going up on screen, and yeah, when I saw this, I was just like, I was pretty livid. I had a really hard time finding the origination of this stat as well as the origination of the actual graphic. And honestly, I still don't trust what I've read, but the furthest that I could trace this back to, the stat specifically, was 2005. The World Health Organization used that stat of every 30 seconds a leg gets amputated due to diabetes, or an amputation occurs due to diabetes, in their World Diabetes Day commemoration in 2005. They didn't use this graphic specifically, but they did use that stat, and that was pretty much the furthest I could find. If that changes after the time of recording, after I do some more research, I'll be sure to put the links down in the description below and call them out for you, just in case you're curious about reading more about it. I just thought that it was a very interesting stat to kind of roll with. And this stat has stuck, honestly. So obviously it's on this graphic. I found that in, I think, 2019. Hold on, let me look. I want to make sure I got this right, because your girl took screenshots of everything. Yeah, even in 2019, this was still circulating around. So it was really interesting to me 2 years later that the same graphic was circling around. The first time I found it was on Facebook. This time it was on Twitter. I really want to talk about why graphics like this are problematic. I think that they're trying to be creative in their nature. They're obviously trying to be shocking, but they're trivializing to people who have to go through the life-changing process of an amputation. One, the graphic uses stigmatizing language and untrue language about diabetes and saying it's sweet, but it's not worth it. That again makes it seem like diabetes is caused by eating too much sugar, especially with the graphic or the visual representation of an ice cream cone in place of a foot. So for one, that's disgusting, but it's also just untrue. It perpetuates like an extremely untrue narrative about diabetes. I think secondly, it, like I said before, trivializes the experience of somebody who has to go through the process of getting an amputation. And that process is not like you adjust quickly and your foot or your leg is amputated and then it's like, okay, your life is normal again. No, like everything about your life isn't normal anymore. The way that you can get around is not normal anymore. The way that you have to be taken care of is not normal anymore. The threat to your other limbs and your organs is not normal anymore. Like, there are all of these things that this particular visual trivializes. And I don't know the intent. I don't know how it was made or why it was made. My assumption and my guess is that it was made to scare people with diabetes into changing diet, maybe, to as a visual representation to show like this is what can happen if you have a bad diet. But as we all know, there are 40 plus factors that affect your blood sugar. Diet is only one of the 40. And so like it's not everything. And I think that this graphic places the blame squarely on patients and their eating habits rather than the set of complex factors that make an amputation possible for someone. I think it also ignores some of the key hardships that people face. So people who can't afford their insulin to bring their blood sugars down, people who live in a food desert and can't afford like fresh produce, or fresh produce is not as accessible to them because of proximity or just like distance. There may not be a grocery store in their neighborhood or a garden. Also, if you're uninsured or your copays are too high, you're not going to have enough money to go to the doctor and to get treated and to take as much care as you need to. So I think that ignoring those factors for like the shocking nature of a graphic to try and like scare someone into like doing better, it's like, it just doesn't work. And it's also just very patronizing. And we rarely talk about social and economic barriers that people face to getting diabetes care and how diabetes is so freaking expensive. And so instead, what I feel like this graphic does is blames the patient for their condition rather than observing like all of the factors that really go into why this might happen to someone. The other thing that I thought was interesting in doing research for this video is that Black patients are losing their limbs at a rate 3 times greater than other races. And what I learned, and I will link this article down below, is that there's a procedure called an angiogram, which kind of measures the flow, like the blood flow through your limbs. And oftentimes, if a patient is at risk for amputation, the angiogram is actually not done first. It's typically the first line of defense is, okay, just amputate the limb. And so when patients are being seen, their first line of defense is not, let's check to see what's salvageable, because that's not profitable for hospitals and for the doctors doing the procedures. What actually happens is that the amputation is more profitable rather than saving the leg. More than half of patients don't get the angiogram, which is absolutely insane. When there's potential to be able to save your limb, they don't do the procedure that helps them determine what they can do. In half of patients, like, it's insane to me. So all in all, why this graphic is just bad, inappropriate, terrible, awful, is that it really does not embody what it's like to be someone with diabetes at risk for complications. And it takes that complication and it trivializes it and makes it seem like it's one specific thing that could keep you from having an extremity amputated when there's so many other factors that go into it. And it shouldn't be trivialized like that, but it is. And that's why I showed these graphics, and I show what I believe is the impact of these graphics on people with diabetes, because patient blaming has to stop, and diabetes jokes that are not funny have to stop. And people say that a joke is a joke and you're allowed to joke. And I think that that is true in some ways. But I think that the definition of a joke or a definition of comedy is that it's rooted in some sort of truth. And that's what makes the jab funny. And jabs about diabetes aren't funny because they are like 99% not rooted in the truth. They are completely wrong, completely out of line. And I don't understand the the desire to make fun of someone's illness. And a lot of these assumptions or like jokes that I show or graphics that I show are like, I don't know. Like, it makes me wonder, one, why people think these things about diabetes. And I think maybe eventually down the line, as I'm doing more of these videos, we'll get to the root of that. But also, I think it's really interesting that these graphics do show up. And you don't see graphics about like emphysema or cancer or rheumatoid arthritis or like irritable bowel syndrome. You don't see jokes and graphics about that the way that you see them about diabetes. So I find it like really fascinating that people feel like they can make fun of this without really understanding the root of why it's wrong and without understanding why the jokes they tell aren't rooted in reality. They're rooted in myth. And then they perpetuate really, really bad stereotypes that keep people from getting the care that they need. And I think I'm so passionate about this because I'm one of those examples of somebody who is a stereotype of diabetes. Like, I am fat, I'm Black, I am, I guess that's it. And I think those are two like huge stereotypes about diabetes. But being a young person, like I was diagnosed with diabetes in my 20s, and my doctor overlooked my age in favor of these other things and didn't test me for the right type of diabetes. And then it turns out 4 years later that I have a form of type 1 diabetes. So it's like these stereotypes and these stigmas are directly correlated to people's care. And that's, I think, what I'm trying to get to the root of is like, why do we believe these stereotypes and why do we keep perpetuating them in graphics and narratives like this? None of those things are like productive. Okay, I have another like food related stigma one for this week that I wanted to add in. This one made me super upset. This one again was not funny. It was really just annoying, I think, and really again pokes and prods at the stigma of diabetes, especially when it's related to food. And so it's a water bottle that's being sold on Amazon that says keto because bacon is better than diabetes. Imagine my shock seeing it. I'm like, oh, okay. Honestly, yes. Anything is better than diabetes. If you can prevent diabetes, and type 2 is a preventable form of diabetes. If you can prevent diabetes, absolutely do everything that you can to do that. You don't want to have to take medication. You don't want to have to take insulin. It's expensive to manage. It's hard to manage. It's progressive. It gets harder and harder to manage over time, and you can do it. And, I think a lot of us who are living with it, a lot of you who watch this channel, myself included, we are great examples of how to do our best living with diabetes. But if you don't have to have diabetes, do what you can to prevent it. That's my spiel on that. However, I don't think that it's right, and I don't think that it's okay for somebody to create a piece of merchandise that literally screams stigma. And again, we're going back to food shame and food stigma. Food is not the entire root cause of diabetes, especially not diabetes type 2. Food itself can be a contributing factor. However, it is not the cause. And so I can't fathom waking up one day and being like, I'm going to make this water bottle that stigmatizes people with diabetes and makes people with diabetes feel like food is the cause or the reason that they have it, but also that like somebody feeling like they get to judge that, somebody getting to feel like they get to say like, oh yeah, you know, bacon is better than diabetes. Like, again, that's like a trivializing statement because nobody wants diabetes. Nobody asks for diabetes. Nobody earns diabetes. Like, it happens to people. One day to the next, you could go from not knowing you have diabetes to then you do. And it's not fair to me that people stigmatize based on like myths about diabetes, but it's also so inappropriate that people joke about an illness that people are living with every day, and that it often gets boiled down to food being the root of it. And I think that that is just one of the most unfortunate parts about diabetes in general, is that like that's what people always go back to, and that is incorrect. So while if you could avoid having diabetes, that's great for you, many of us are living with it and do not want our illness stereotyped and stigmatized. So things like that, merchandise that basically stigmatizes somebody making money off of that, is something that like I just can't get behind. And I also think that it's completely inappropriate and it's not okay and it's not funny. Like, it isn't. That's it for my video today, guys. I really appreciate you watching. I want to know how some of these topics made you feel, what you think about them. Like, is this interesting? Is this something that you heard before? Is it not? If you also like this video, please do be sure to give it a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to my channel so that you can be the first to know when more videos like this go out. I'm also doing, like I said, more cooking videos, more just like diabetes lifestyle videos, diabetes tip videos. So if it's like, I don't know, if you like any of this stuff and you think it's interesting, please do subscribe. It has made me so happy to just have like a community of people who I could have like a good conversation with about diabetes and not feel ashamed and not feel alone and not feel like I am the only one dealing with this. So thank you guys so much for all of your support and your kind comments and always just being here to be a listening ear to my little YouTube channel. I really appreciate you guys watching today, and I hope you have a great week. I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.